that is not saying the right thing, but it's so weird that it's showing the group name here as SAO contested health claims. But the filter I did is for this. Now, it was closed, and it was in this SAO contested health claim on the 6th, I guess around the time when it was closed. That was the last group queue. So this history is good, but I think it's showing the last queue that it was in, at least here in this part.
Right. Was it the first queue that they said they couldn't see it in?
Yeah. They said they did not see it until the 5th. I guess till, what did he say?
So they couldn't see it in the SAO high dollar.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they said, yes. John Reitman here.
Is that
Yes.
the one that, is this the issue that Lucette and them were looking at?
No, I think this one just came up, Malik.
Yeah, they reached out to me
Yeah.
about a query separate. It wasn't having anything to do with CIRT, nothing like that, but they're trying to come up with a query to find out about, there's a whole, like a PIRO, I can't remember what it is. I was trying to help them out with that. That sounds similar.
Well, but check this out.
The LK with the LK HDLs, whatever.
No. This has nothing to do with that, Malik.
Okay, never mind.
Let me just show real quick. And again, I don't want to, I guess I don't want to delay this meeting much for this. We can look at it kind of offline, but just real quick, because I was trying to use the history. But, okay, John Reitman is saying this one particular case number that I'm going to show you, we did not see it show up in the SAO high dollar in-stage CQ until the morning of the 5th, okay? The case was created on the 30th. And from what I'm seeing here, this is from the case, we know that the case queue history, table, we know that it's accurate. We know that this is where the case was, right?
Right.
And here's when it hit. 1:30, it hit the quest queue, SAO high dollar in stage C, sat there for 5 days until John took assignment of it. He took an assignment of it, right? So he's actually saying he didn't see it until it appeared, but he's not right. He said we didn't see it until the morning of the 5th. Okay, so morning of the 5th, he took assignment of it, but this has to be the queue he's saying he didn't see it in. But we know it was there from 1:30.
Right, but go back to his email real quick.
Yeah.
All right, we generated an inventory report. Our reports don't show the claims in that queue on the 30th, 31st. So for whatever reason, he's saying that it didn't show up on the report.
Well, I'm going to ask him what report he's using. Okay,
Yeah.
So we'll get to the bottom of that, whether it was DSIR or CIRT. But I wanted to be able to show the CIRT report and say, look, there's a history. It shows that it
Is
was
he under Fritz?
It came from Fritz, yes. Fritz
So
started
Fritz,
this whole.
Yeah, so Fritz has his own stuff that he's generating. Me and him had a talk. I don't think he's using CIRT for that because he creates his own he got access to the tables and is running his own report.
That's fine. That's fine, Malik. But I think the thing is, they should be able to. I wanted to be able to use the CIRT to say, no, you're wrong. It was there, and here's the CIRT report. We already know that it was there because this is the gospel to me, because this is the case queue history table from which your all reports load from this table, right?
Yep.
So the whole thing is, okay, this looked like it was working because, I went to that quest history tab and I filtered it down, Malik, to SAO and high dollar ints, right? And I did it for the range, 131 to 27. I clearly see the case here. This is the case that's in question.
Right.
Okay. But my question is, if I'm filtering here, why is it saying this queue name, SAO contested health claims? Because this is the queue that the case was ultimately in the very end, the last group queue it was in. But why the discrepancy between these two? I'm sure that this is coming because it was the last group queue was in, and I know a lot of these reports work by last group queue was in.
Right.
But I might have a hard time. I'm gonna have to, if I was to generate and show John, I don't know if they know how it worked, but I would highlight this and say, look, this case was in this queue on these dates, but I just gonna have a hard time explaining why the group queue name here is reflecting the most recent group queue. And I played around with these dates. Like I tried to narrow it down to just 131, and it still shows this, and it didn't even go to this until 2/6. 2.6, it went to this. Yeah, 2.6, it went to this. So I don't know why, like when I change this to 131, it doesn't work. It still shows the SAO contested held claims.
Yeah, I have to play around with that because no matter what, go ahead. It's that. Let me see. Ending Quest Henry details so it doesn't even have an entry for that right now, right?
Wait. It's because they're both 12 a.m. Let me change this to the first. It won't let me. I did notice it takes a while for this to.
Yes, a lot of data has got to come through.
But it's just weird that, I'm obviously filtering by this, so it knows that case somehow is related to this queue. I just don't know. Is the business aware of this?
So do you have to take that filter off, the queue name filter?
I don't want to, because this is the queue. He said that it wasn't in. He's saying that it didn't appear until this queue, until the 5th.
Okay, yeah.
He's saying, okay, but it did sit there from 1:30 till the time he picked it up. But he's saying he couldn't see it this whole time it was sitting here, which we know was sitting there for 5 days, 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying he didn't see it. Maybe it's just he didn't see it in the whatever reports he was using. My thing back then was
but regardless, if you go back to this part right here, you can go back to the ending count. Yeah, and I have to play around with that to see, what the see what shows up for that. I do know that the ending. How did we do it? We had to save it for like an ending on per day, but that should have, like you said, if it ended at that day in that queue, you should have an entry at least one period of time for that.
High dollar events.
Yeah.
Queue name. It seems to me like this group name here, at least what I've done, it's always the last group queue it was in.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's bugged. I don't know, but somehow it knows.
We did it in a way. Because it's supposed to show reflective like kind of a type of. I gotta look at it again. I gotta look in the table.
No problem.
Because I think it might be there. It might be there. I have to go through my notes. It might be there, but not showing for here. Because the point I think is how all the inventory ended, type of deal, right? So just really still taking the last, despite what's going on. So I got to refresh my memory on that.
But this is what see here. I ran it for 1 day before 131 to 21, filtered by SAO high dollar in stage C. Did filter for held claim, but you can see the case here. Same thing. This is the case in question, and there's the last group.
And that's with the filter on that high dollar whatever, but it's coming up with this one, right?
Correct.
So it is hitting something that's showing that, but it's still showing that group name no matter what.
Right. And scrolled over here, and I can bring the detailed. No, this is the detailed data. No. I can still bring the. No, I can't. Right? There's no more.
You shouldn't be able. I mean, it shouldn't be able
all
to.
All the data I can see. But you're saying that this SAO high dollar somehow that is embedded in these rows somewhere. We just can't see it because obviously it's filtering down based on that, right? So
well, the way that it works is there's a cross-reference table. So there's a record. There's a table that's basically a history table and because everything is about performance, right? So a cross-reference based on a type of ID, so that it'll bring down minimal amount of records based on a query just using a cross-reference table. So I'd have to look at that.
Okay. But if we look at this date range, right, 131, we know that's from 12 midnight to 2/1 midnight. So it's the entire day of 131. We pretty much know over here, 131, it was in this queue, right? 130, it hit it. So we know the entire day of 131, it was sitting in this queue.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering maybe there's even some kind of a bug because, it didn't go to this queue until the 6th. So to me, it almost seems like this should show SAO.
Can you send me that case ID real quick?
But again, we don't have to do this now, Malik, because I think we've probably got everybody here. Let's maybe I'll just put it in the chat, and then we can look at it later. But let's go ahead and start the thing.
You started something with me now. You know you can't.
I know. I couldn't. I wanted to just take 1 minute initially before people joined and just show that I was trying to play around with this history but no, even Shelly's reaching out to me asking how's the transition going, and I think Brittany's getting anxious to turn this over to us.
Yeah. Let's see. What did you agree on your transition time?
We didn't really come up with a formal timeline because I told them that I think they were thinking it's gonna be like 1 or 2 sessions with you, but I told them no, I think it's going to be a few, and that we were getting good information in these and we wanted to continue, and then after we're done getting them from you, then we have to have the one with Jeff. Yeah. And we submitted the access request. I mean, I submitted at least everybody that replied to my email that didn't have access to CIRT. I sent the links, and so this is a reminder: if you haven't tried it yet, please do try it. And if you are unable to access those reports, let me know so I can request the access, because it will be, could be 7 to 10 days before you get the access actually granted. And then Swapna submitted a request for everybody for the back end CIR claim report schema. Right, Swapna?
Yes, Patrick. Yep, that is in progress. I checked this morning also.
Okay, very good.
Probably need to submit one for myself too for the that's the one for the Control M.
No, Malik, that's for database access.
Okay.
Well, you're going to need to figure out how to request that. You're talking about the BMC Remedy production support tool thing, right, Malik?
No, I'm talking about the Control M that I showed you with those things where it turns green and yellow and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's the BMC,
right?
That's
the BMC. Yeah, that's the BMC thing.
That's the BMC. Well, you don't have. Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. You can do it through that, but you can do it through an email, just an email as well. That's the way that but they may have updated and enforcing it before, because they say, hey, send an email with this information. Remember, I sent you and I sent you and Swapna. I can't remember if it was you, Swapna, and the whole team. That example, and they say, and it's got CIR 00 and so forth and so on it. So.
Yeah, but I tried to add Malik, but it says it's not enabled actually. Maybe the ownership has to change from Brittany to Patrick.
Maybe it could be.
I'm not sure exactly what you guys are talking about, so I probably need to see that email. Maybe it'll refresh my memory. But if I need to do any action to request any access, then
hold on.
I need somebody to help me.
Hold on. So sent items. Let's see. Where did I
send? On Wednesday.
This right here?
Yes.
Yeah. So access request must be initiated from the manager, and the process laid out as here. And so I said the relevant part in that thing is that saying that, hey, send an email from your manager to CT admin containing all the approvals and so forth and so on, right? And I said, here's the information that you guys need. The application that it needs is the CIR 00. The application name is CIR 00. The application name is FB claims reporting. And here's an example of when we did it before. And I said, hey, admins, can you grant Jeff and Brittany this? They said, hey, you need to initiate from the manager and go through this process, and so they said, hey, you got out all this stuff, whatever. So I thought I was giving you guys what, from our experience, that even when they came back with us, it really comes down to seemingly like an email, unless that process has really changed.
Okay,
as long as you got this stuff, but they're just going to look at, hey, are you a manager? And you're going to say, hey, I'm the manager, blah, blah, blah. They need access to this. Here's who needs it, that type of stuff. Unless that process has changed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I somehow missed this email, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. I will go through and submit that request, and I will follow the directions and Submit it. Thank you.
So where was I? I got lost in doing some other stuff earlier. Where did we left off? I think I was showing you the different tables, right?
Yes.
Okay. So running through the different tables, this table right here loads all of the inquiry information in a kind of a, I don't want to say template, but it loads it in a way that you for like all EWOC, all CBOL, all ICS, and it kind of puts them into these categories. So even though there's task numbers in EWOC, not inquiry numbers, it's going to go into this inquiry number field. Owner location code, those type of stuff, whatever. We format that. You're going to have to look at the mapping document to really understand what these values are going to mean. Like, so we, if it's a location code, they don't use location codes. We use whatever kind of codes that they use, whatever kind of identifying numbers to start putting in these different fields. So, and if we can't, if there's no equivalent, we'll set it to null.
And that's all combined. Okay, there's a source system, so it's all combined data, ICS, CBOL, and EWOC.
Yep. Okay. And and if you go to the mapping documents, it's going to be to, so you'll see this the sheet right here. That's going to tell you exactly how everything is mapped. So I talked about that location code. It's going to say, hey, this is from EWOC, and it's saying, hey, from this EWC task type config table, it's bringing over the business ID and putting it in there. So this mapping document is going to be good because this is the query that's going to be used to extract all that information.
Hey, what is that, real quick, that the owner location code, the TT1s, is that an EWOC or the TT1088? What is that? That's the second time I've seen that today, so that's why I'm asking.
That's kind of like what. So, are you familiar with location codes in CBOL and locate group codes in ICS?
I have been in a previous life.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Quest queue ID. That's the equivalent of a quest queue ID.
Okay.
So I say that tenuously because they also have location codes, right? So an owner location code, they got some really loopy things, but sometimes they'll have an owner location code and a assigned location code, and the owner location code basically overrides or supersedes the assigned location code. So they got 3 different codes of where stuff is, and that's the. Go ahead.
But we don't necessarily own those. It may be EWOC, it may be ICS, right. It may okay.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So, yep. So EWOC is pretty simple. That's just for CBOL, the way CBOL did things. So we had to get around the quirky way of doing things, as well as ICS was less quirky, but they still have some quirks or whatever. So, but yeah.
ICS had the tree hierarchy, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Sure did. That got super weird because you can have the same thing which said secured, S, but it's the same exact ID. Just one is secured, one is not. Right. All kind of different stuff. So we won't get into that. You don't have to worry about that anymore. ICS is even going away pretty soon too.
That's the rumor.
So, but I'll flip back over to here. And so just give you a sense of what's in this table, the mode, the description, who created it, who's assigned to it right now, when we received it, when it was transferred, this is for location, provider information, claim information. So you see that this claim number has H, blah, 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 blah. Later on, it's going to figure out that this is a claim number because it's going to fill in like the zeros and stuff like that. So it'll be able to understand those kind of things. Because there's a pretty nifty thing that we put in to say, okay, you look at the H1 and then fill in zeros. And if you can find the claim based off of putting in that padding, it'll put it into the claim table. But if not, it's just not going to know what it is. So, and people do put in claims all kind of different ways. We had to account for quite a bit of different stuff. So, for mapping for line of business, and then bring in different things of what for these are all ICS, so it's telling what's the status or what's the cause of the call or cause of the inquiry, what's the final status of the inquiry, what's the resolution, what's when it was completed, and then I think that completes everything else. Everything else is, oh well, this is kind of the PHI data that we bring in directly. Any questions on this table? If not, I'm going to jump around. Well, I'm not going to jump around. I'm going to go to the interest table. So this one's a little. So, long story short, this is basically an interest forecasting table. So for all the claims that we have here, it's going to forecast. It's going to take in all this information that you see at the beginning. All these things are factors in figuring out what the interest is going to be at this particular time for this claim. Interest rate, grace days, if it's electronic or not, what kind it is, if it's Medicare primary, who the vendor is, when their payment, what their payment grouping is, what day they actually get paid on, which is what day of the week. Could tell how long it's been open. Once it gets to starting saying how many interest days it has, it's going to calculate from today to the day that they're going to get paid. That means it's the earliest that they can be paid because those are calculated into the interest, and add that on to the principal payment, and then going to say, here is what that amount is going to be in the next cycle. So you see that this is $258,000. $258.78, saying, hey, the next time that we could possibly pay, this is the interest that's occurred as of today. The next time that this paid is going to have to include $168 and add that to the principal. This is the total amount that we would pay on the next cycle. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So to be heads up, that was a very complex process. So when going over it with other areas, they didn't even want to tackle it. I was like, here's what you got to do, but they did not want to tackle that. I've 3 areas we're trying to do that. And while it makes sense and all the documentation is out there in those folders and stuff like that, because it's a lot of math and you're looking at a whole bunch of different if then else kind of statements, sometimes people just get a little burnt out on it. So,
and my assumption is this just is mirroring the logic that's in Diamond, correct?
No, it's not mirroring a lot of it is mirroring the logic in Diamond, but Diamond doesn't have a forecasting calculation either.
Okay. But I guess what I'm saying is the interest that's being applied would mirror what it will be in Diamond when Diamond actually processes the claim.
In the future, yes.
Correct.
It's mirroring what Diamond will pay.
Yes.
At that particular day, right?
Yes.
But it's telling
that's what
you
I'm saying.
Several days ahead. Hey, here's what you're looking at.
Right. So, but it's not pulling the information from Diamond. It's just going, this is what Diamond's going to end up doing. Correct. In the future. Got it.
Yep. We pulled the adjustment logic and said, here's what it does, and work with why can't I think of his name on Rick's team?
Jerry?
Rajesh.
Rajesh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We work with Rajesh in their adjustment area and got the calculation, got the adjustment logic from Jocelyn's team, got all that other stuff, and then kind of mirrored that. And I think some of that might be in workflow. I think they tried to duplicate some of that in workflow, but I don't know. I don't think it fully went through.
Yeah, I've seen the tables out there for that, but I haven't seen where they're being used.
Yeah, so the business definitely does. The adjustment team does look at this because they've had us specifically make updates to certain tables even after we built this, and they say, hey, we need to kind of whittle it down to what kind of priority we need to focus on. To say, hey, how much interest are we talking about, in between, so that they can say high, low, medium, and that kind of stuff. But that's another conversation. If you guys ever want to talk about interest, feel free, we'll talk about it. But all you really got to know is that this table takes all the claims that we have and does some forecasting on what that future interest amount will be. And so, and it comes up.
Where are the packages located, Malik? We have to log in with the application ID, right? To see the packages.
Yeah, you have to
load the data.
Visual Studio. You have to go into Visual Studio to look at. Well, you can also look at. You can't. You have to go into Visual Studio.
Those are Oracle packages, right? Not like to load the data into those tables.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
This is a solution file. That's one. So these are the packages kind of right here. And if you want to look at the actual code for what's loading everything, you can go here. It's going to open it up in Explorer. But these are the actual packages that you would use to kind of copy and update. And I think it's going to be, yes. But like these ones, you see that this is a Visual Basic file right here. Like that would be, but I wouldn't use these ones because Jeff created see, this is a solution file. So this is the one that you would ultimately use if you need to update. But this is from 2022. All Jeff's changes are in GitLab, I think it is. Yeah, GitLab. So for you, Swapna, or whoever developer, this is a data dump that was done by. This was done by. What is her name? Who's the developer left on Brittany's team? Emily.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Emily, before she left a great thing for developer, just very technical, very developer focused, saying here's all things as a developer. She was like, I had no idea what. I just started from scratch, and she just dug in and just started doing stuff. And she jotted down her journey of things that she needed to know as she was doing kind of all those things. She did an awesome job. I mean, when I tell you, she's one of the brightest people regarding getting to know a technology from not knowing it and just smashing it. She did that. So she said, here's what she started. She noticed she has here technologies to learn. She put the YouTube link of stuff to like, here's what, so all these different things that you need to get the Shop IT stuff that you need to download. Here's the requests that said that you need to have. Here's the tables that you need to be able to look at. things you need to be aware of, stuff
Yeah,
that
this will be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then here's a lot of the stuff. Remember, I was showing you guys in that other. There's a spreadsheet, right, that has a lot of this stuff in it that I was talking about, like all these application IDs and the passwords for it and all kind of other stuff. When the jobs go on,
Okay.
I'll let you. So anyway, so long story short, this is just the interest forecasting table. That's what you need to know about this one. For the inventory table, you just gotta know that this is the brains of kind of the backbone of the entire process. Every single piece of inventory, from Quest, Ewok to everything in between, gets loaded here with its status, the source key, what kind it is, when it was, and some information to be able to start assigning the data entitlement. If you ever have to find something, this is one of the best places to start searching for it, because even if there's a break, like for instance, something that got loaded extra or didn't get cataloged correctly in the other tables, like inquiry table or Quest or something like that, or whatever, you can find it here and then see what went wrong. This inventory all association table is one of the tables that you're probably that takes the longest to run in the morning. This is for Quest only, and it's hitting your case association table. And what it's doing is, remember we talked about, Patrick was brought up how on day one, it was in, I think there was a state, I can't remember whatever kind of queue, but then on the 6th, it was in a different queue. This goes back for all the cases that were obtained that met the criteria of open or one-day closed. It'll go back and get that history of which queue ID it was in each day. And they'll say, it was in this day, it was in here from this day into this day. And so there's logic.
Sorry, I was just going to say, does it so if the case is in a person's queue, does it traverse back to the last group queue for this table, or is it going to?
No, it's for this one's for all. It's gonna. So the second one is the last group queue. You see the one that says group association?
Yes, group. Okay.
Over here.
Yeah.
So it's good. So this one's gonna go back to the last group queue. This one associates to the person or group queue. It doesn't matter. So this is how what the code does is it says, okay, I need to know who's the last person that had it, and also what group queue was the last group that had it, so that you can now say, hey, it would belong to this person, and almost try and make it like there's a location, even though in Quest once it's in a person's group queue, it's not really stored as belonging to a group anymore. It's stored to the person. So we had to try and do two processes so that you can show both.
Yeah, so it's coming back to me. Yeah, it's coming back to me as well. Yeah, so all has
you were part of
individual and group queues, and then that second table that has GRP association only has the group queues that it was in over time. So
right.
For the all, I'm sorry, can I go back down real quick? The all.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that assignee ID, and I don't know what inventory type this row is. 7901 is the assignee ID. I'm just trying to remember. That's probably a Quest group queue. Is it?
Probably, yep. Because these are people right here.
Yeah, I have the rack F. That's what I was trying to remember, if it was the demp ID, right? The number that we do, or the rack F. And it's the rack F. So when it's a number and it's a Quest record, it's a group queue. When it's looks like a rack F, wasn't a person.
Because we had to chop off the G on these things, because almost every person has like a G. Blah 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 blah. I think
that's right.
So,
that's right.
Yep. Yeah. So this is going to, and this doesn't, and because in the case association it doesn't have an end date for each row, it just has the date that it came in there. There's a lead function. It's either a lead or a lag. I can't remember which one it is, but off the top of my head. But there's the function that will look to the next record and say, okay, it's going to show the end date as the day before the next record, right? Showing from here to here, and that's how it gets that end date, and they'll start the next record on the next one.
What if it's transferred multiple times in a day?
That's what this is for. So that's why this transfer will say, hey, from here to, and I said by the day, but it's really, I think by the hour or the minutes or whatever.
Okay.
So it'll say, hey, from here to here, it lasted from here to here, then from here to here, then from here to here, then from here to here, right? So, so we get the kind of the whole history log, and that's what's used later on. You'll see on the page there's a transfer part of the report, and it'll look at that and say, okay, it got transferred from this queue to this queue. That counts as one. Then transfer from this queue to this queue, that counts as two, and another one, stuff like that.
Right.
But so I'm very much glad that now they're kind of going away from transferring and going to, for every other area, they're going to, hey, when you transfer, technically it's just opening up a new one in another location and closing out the one in that location rather than doing an actual transfer. You don't have to count that. It doesn't stay with this. It gets a brand new, when you so-called transfer, you're actually opening up a brand new record just assigned to that area. But meantime, that's where all these guys come from.
And transfer in a quest lingo equates to route or assignment, right? Those are the two things that would cause a case to move from one queue to another. It's an assignment action is, a case moved from a group queue to a person, and a route is person to person, person to group queue, or group queue to group queue. And every single one of those equals a transfer, right? I know in the report there's columns that say transferred in, transferred out, right? So that's what they're referring to, because like we've got beginning, ending, transferred in, transferred out, closed, right? So those are all the different things that could happen to one of these group queues, right?
And so I do see something I'm gonna have to pay attention to, because all these ones are, oh no, that's the same. I see all these guys are the same time. There should only really be one of these guys. You should have technically, well, I'm thinking it should be one yes and one no. But I'll have to look into that a little bit later. Or ask Jeff to look into that a little bit later. But the idea of this is to say, okay, we know when someone's looking at what they need to deal with for that day, they don't need to know anything or care anything about this one that's not active. This one's been closed out. They will look at this one and say, hey, this is open. This is the person. This is the queue that it's in right now. This is the one that's active as of this very moment. And if they need to know more, break down into the transfers or break down to some other things, then they'll say, hey, the ones that are, there's a filter that will allow them to see the not active records where this information will show up in the report for them. Any other questions or concerns on? I kind of think the same principle goes for the group queue, is just that instead of you'll never see any of the ones like these RACFs on that report. It's only filtered by the last group queue. Claim association. I dabbled on this before. This is just to make sure that we have a unique set of claims, so that when a claim comes in from both an inquiry or in, let's say, Quest, or it comes in multiple times on different, you have an ICS record, you have an EWOC record, you have a claims record, and also a workflow, that it doesn't jam up and the system doesn't get confused, and also that we save table space. So it'll say, hey, here's all these different records that it came in on, but we're only going to store one claim, one unique claim in the claim, in this iClaim table here. because that's the report is not going to pull this table right here. It's going to pull from this iClaim table. This is just kind of a way to receive all those different things, but make sure that it doesn't create unnecessary records going over to the report. Make sense?
Yes.
This one is the misroute table. The best way to say this is, so for Medicare and a couple others, there was concern about their records being in different areas where it shouldn't be. So what it does is it pulls these different queues, looks at the teams associated with those queues, looks at factors such as the line of business and a couple other things, and compares the team to the type of work that it is. And if it belongs to, like for Medicare and More, if it belongs to anyone that's not under any of the Medicare and More teams, it's going to flag it and say this is basically a potential misroute. Yeah, that's all that. Okay, and then also high dollar audits. So.
Yeah, what all sources does that? Is it just Quest or is it
just Quest? Just Quest.
Okay. Yep. Alrighty.
Yep, it's just Quest. It was part of one particular effort. It started under Chris Spell. I haven't heard anything about it afterwards. I think once they got their inventory under control, or whatever was happening wasn't happening anymore. Yeah, I don't think that they've been using it. So I think they make a glance at it every now and then, but it was really to track down or handle a particular problem that I don't think it was. I think once they got it under control, it was something that you just had to get under control from a process standpoint. Making sure if people leave the area, get promoted, whatever, right? It does that inventory doesn't stick with them. Make sure that they clear out all that before they leave, or somebody gets that into one of the other teams, or get it taken care of. Because I guess we got hit by people not working some things, and they just aged way out, and nobody paid attention to it. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I haven't heard anybody talking about this route, but so I think on the first tab in the report, like the Quest analysis, right, where it just shows all the queues. So we're tagging those case numbers, right, based on criteria, say it is a misroute, and then on that first tab, report that shows all the queues up top and filter criteria at the bottom on the side, you can actually pick misroute indicator yes or no, and it must just filter down to these case IDs that are for that date time.
Yeah, it'll filter down, but then there's two kinds. There's like a high dollar, and then there's a Medicare, but I don't see the Medicare on here. So I don't see any.
All I see is a high dollar AU.
Yep.
Blanks, at least.
Yeah. So I don't see any Medicare on here, and so I don't know if because of I'd have to go back through the code if maybe the people of Katrina Porter, she's still doing Medicare or something like that. But anyway, I haven't bothered with this. I haven't cared about this in a long time, even when I was working on CIRT. So I wouldn't worry about this one either. It used to send out an email every day as well.
Yes, so, when there were misroutes on that day or whatever, yes. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I haven't gotten an email in a while, so. But yeah, like I said, they fixed their process. Once it helped them to figure out what was going wrong, so it was valuable for that. But after that, I think it happened so infrequently, it doesn't matter. the next table is the people table. So this is where this table receives the information that goes out to Active Directory and is able to identify the RACF and give you the name and information about the employees that we have. Unfortunately, I think something's going on because it used to have the reports to in this field so that you can know what manager is. And instead of loading here, it's loading directly to the assignee table. But we want it to, ultimately, it needs, for tracking purposes, it needs to be here. But for the purpose of the report running, it's running fine. But for some reason in the code, it's not loading to this as of this moment, and the role level. For some reason, that's not loading.
What was the selection criteria for the employees we loaded here? Is it every employee that has an inventory item that they was either in their queue?
Yep. Not just quests so at the end. Yep. So remember, in the jobs that I showed you, there's a quest job that pulls all the workflow and quest inventory, and then there's also a inquiry that pulls all the EWOC, Siebel, and ICS, right? And so as soon as those things are, so basically it's going to go to this table and this table, and it's going to find all the RACFs from those, and then it's going to go to Active Directory and load that information to this table.
Got it. Yep, that's what I remember. And is this the one that also out to the right has the supervisor and levels?
No, it's not. It's just that's on this table right here.
Right.
So what it will do is it's going to say, hey, when the report runs, what it will do is it's going to say, okay, I need to, instead of showing the RACF, because the names are more valuable to people, it'll say, okay, the group owner, we know the group owner's ID is U9D7. We'll go out and go out to the people table and get those names. Then we know that the VP is UP0M. We'll go out to the people table and get his name. So.
Yeah. Can you scroll down though and find one of these that's a person and not a group queue?
That's a person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just hold on.
Because I thought, don't we also show for a person, these are the group queues, right? The people that are responsible, right? Group queue owner, then their supervisor. But so there's also some, yes, exactly. There you go.
So M4BM, that's an individual. So if you filter by this, it's going to say group or individual. So all the ones that are I's. And so as individuals, work queue manager, and they say, hey, the supervisor is this person, the director is this person, VP is this person.
Yes. Okay, so this table has for both the group queue, the whole hierarchy, and for individual queues, and you've got an I or a G to separate the.
Yep.
All right, then go back to that table you were in.
Did you want me to look up somebody or something?
No, I just was trying to remember where that hierarchy was in relation here to the people table. Oh, I know. I was just going to say, it is good that they made that decision to never reassign the same RACF to another person, right? Because that would mess all this up.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is do we keep a historical record, or is it just as it is at right now? So if things get rearranged, history gets rearranged too.
No, it depends on what you're talking about. So in the history table for all the historical records, it's going to keep that RACF of that, what group owner was assigned to it at that time, and a couple other different things. Because it doesn't save everything about the record when it gets loaded to history.
Okay.
But this gets pulled every day. So if Lalita goes from claim congruent cost to, I don't know, marketing tomorrow. After that gets updated, however amount of time it takes to get updated in Active Directory, it'll show the very next day in this table that she's somewhere else. She's no longer a contract worker. She's a full-time worker in a different area.
Okay.
To answer your concerns or questions?
Yeah.
Sure. I was trying to think. There was something else I was going to bring up about this table, but I can't think about it right now.
But these tables are all like purge every day and then refresh, right?
Yep.
Or because of the history, we're
truncated and reload. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. The history is not stored in these Oracle tables. The history is stored in the tables on the SQL Server.
Right. That's the key. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
This one should be pretty familiar. This is all quest case data. And so case type. So we're bringing tracking. We're bringing basically everything. The only filters that really is, it's not all the data, but stuff that we want. But the only cases that truly are filtered out is we bring in everything that's open and 1 day closed. So some of the things it's bringing in is the type. We're bringing in the status, the inquiry type, the dependencies, tracking case type. You start seeing these indicators that'll say, hey, what's a begin indicator, receive, process, end? The logic for this is think of it like for the 9th, if we received it on the 8th, it's going to get a begin indicator of 1. If we received it, I'm sorry, let me take that back. If we received it on the 7th, because this is an ad hoc request, so the day before yesterday, it's going to have a begin indicator of 1. That means that it was existing before the ad hoc ran or whatever, right? If it was received that day, then it gets a 1, means it came in. That's basically, this is new work that came in. This is existing work that was there prior. So that's the two indicators are here. These almost oppose each other. Either it was there before or received that day. This is on the opposite end with process, meaning that if this was closed, then it gets a process indicator of 1. If it's still open, it gets an end indicator of 1. So it gets 1s or 0s because when you do a count of these groups of like let's say your quest queues or whatever, right? So now at the end it summarizes and says a count of the end indicators, how much work you still have open and need to work on. The process indicator will tell you how much was closed yesterday. Receive will tell you how much came in that day, and the begin indicators could tell you how much work you had that was still open before the day started. That day started. And this is they definitely look. This is one of the key features of functions and features of the report. They want to look at, kind of what was this kind of the status of day of the snapshot of yesterday is what it is. This is all kind of techie stuff. This gets in the same thing as you saw. This is the PHI fields right here. Group number. We bring in the ITS type, but we don't do a whole lot with it. It's just if somebody wants to know about it. So there was a little bit of thing that had to be done for Quest because the numbers will get thrown off because of reopens. So this is where it gets tagged, where if something was closed but reopened, able to know about it. Otherwise, they'll throw some things off. So there's a logic to the way that happens, but I don't want to get into it. It gets too complex. I don't want to do that today.
Hey, Malik. What has, and if you've mentioned this already and I've missed it, I apologize, but has the SSN tokenization project come up with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I just didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It came in. So one of the things we sat down and we talked with you guys a while back at the very start of the SSN project, and because this was tagged as one that has a dependency on
Member.
Huh?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
We depend on you guys. So we're not generating these IDs. We're not pulling from social security number field or anything like that or whatever. So if Quest gets rid of SSN in the member ID field, we don't have to do anything about it. If when member the subscriber ID gets changed from having any socials in it, then we won't pull any socials either. So the only one that we had to deal with was old data. We had to scrub that from our history. None of these tables, remember, they truncate and reload anyway. And then some of the tables in EWOC, no, I'm sorry, not EWOC, in Siebel and ICS were not changing due for SSN, or at least not at the time. So we had to change the field to make sure that it didn't pull in contract ID, which also had socials. They had the HCC ID, which should never be a social number, social security number. So we had to switch it to that.
Okay. All right. So once that stuff comes in scope, we'll have the same issue of just going in and tokenizing that historical data as needed based on what's currently in scope. I know subscriber number currently hasn't been. And I guess
you mean you have to tokenize it for Quest, you mean?
We'd have to tokenize existing data. Well, yeah, we're going to have to tokenize it for Quest, but for existing historical data out here, we would also need to tokenize that as well.
Why would you have to do that?
Well, because just tokenizing it in Quest will only tokenize the new information coming in. It won't tokenize the information that's already out here.
But remember, this gets deleted every night.
Yeah.
Every morning. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, so what about stuff that has gone to archive and Quest that's still out here?
This is only for the active records they're pulling, right? Not the archive ones.
Right.
Okay, so if it's got a closed...
Maybe the question, well, a SQL Server for the history, you don't pull in member information, or do you, for the SQL Server or the history?
No, I don't think that we do. I could tell you real quick.
Yeah, and I've actually got to drop, guys. I apologize.
And we all of us.
Yeah, so I don't see so for this, for what gets stored, see here, this is what gets stored for, sorry, let me make sure the history. Yeah, so this is all that gets stored for the history, right? All these fields here, which none of it is member information or any PHI information at all. So because the PHI information doesn't get stored, you don't have to do anything with these tables later on. Did that absolve your concern? Oh, did she drop off already? She said they had to go.
We are here, but
she already
for another meeting.
Yeah. Let me check. Sorry, Lily. What meeting? She has a completion of FEP security, and this is majority of the team. Yeah, Malik, I think we're just gonna have to.
This is a stopping point anyway, right? Hey. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Next week, I just have to remember or make sure you remind me. I'll go over quickly the Quest table. I'm sorry, the SQL Server tables, we won't even have to go over the workflow one. It's the same principle. So
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I'll set it up next week. Any preference, or just a couple days out whenever I see availability?
it doesn't matter. Just whenever I'm available, it's cool. Just put it on the calendar.
Thank you, Malik. We appreciate it.
No problem. You guys take
Thank you,
care.
Malik. Thank you.
All right now.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.